Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, May 13th. This is Nadex Morning Analysis, where we look at potential hotspots in the markets today, where you might want to be looking for trading opportunity. My name is Todd Rich. I am with Nadex. With me, as usual, from Keep Trading Simple, we've got Brian Caprice. Before Brian and I jump into it and do a little analysis on what's going on in the markets this morning, we do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and might not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So quickly, we've all heard about the economic data. We've all heard about with inflation. We know what's going on with the pipeline, even though that was a gasoline and heating oil pipeline, not a crude oil pipeline. The equity markets got smashed yesterday. They were down the day before. I mean, we're in a downtrend right now. We are looking at an unchanged open, maybe slightly in the green. So we're going to go through it. Let's just take a look at some technical levels in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We'll take a look at technical levels in oil, and let's just take a look. I mean, those are the hot spots. So let's just jump into it. Brian, I'm going to flip it over to you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as you said, I mean, we all knew yesterday we had the CPI ratings coming in really, really big. Mentioned yesterday that, again, you see that type of inflation, you got to start to think, again, a normal average individual country, everybody is looking at raising interest rates to be able to control that inflation. Absolutely horrible for the markets. And again, we talked about being short yesterday in a channel. And again, that was kind of the end result, right? Here's where we were yesterday. We talked about being, bearish. It went all the way down and ended up going through a couple different levels. I mean, again, we had some basing here. We had basing here. And these were levels we had talked about projections to the downside. But something as big as CPI and raising interest rates is definitely something you got to keep on your radar. So it did go down. It did end up having a fourth hit down here and ended up coming through to a smaller level. We've kind of seen a retracement. And a lot of this, I believe, is really going to be kind of the profit taking of yesterday. Again, if you have a really, really big day down, the next day tends to be kind of a reversal. Not that you can't stack multiple days in a row, but remember, a lot of the cause of this, the catalyst for this was the CPI numbers. It looks like 1 minute ago, they're talking about, the US dollar rally is fool's gold and should be sold, analysts said. The reason why is because the Fed is taking a pretty solid stance that we're going to see inflation. It's going to go away. We're not worried about it. We want it to be high for a long period of time. And again, under normal market conditions, they'd be talking about raising it the next time if it was that much higher than expected. But it looks like they're kind of locking themselves in. Now, unemployment claims a little while ago came in better than expected, although there was an adjustment for last time. Again, I don't know how they magically find more after the fact. It's like voting in, it's like presidential election. We'll find more votes later, right? That's kind of how unemployment claims has been. But so that's kind of a positive for the overall economy. And again, seeing this push down and kind of seeing where we're at right now, the European session was pretty much just, a reversal. I mean, here's the European session move. It was basically just straight up. So I would say today, starting off at kind of that unchanged amount, you're seeing the NQ up much bigger at 0.6%. I would say this one has the ability to go higher today. If it does start to roll over, you're really going to have to be looking at levels down here at 33,000, 33,080-ish. The level that we took the bounce off of right here at 33,215, not a level I think is going to hold. I mean, it was a level that we could have traded off of. It was a small level, but the fact that it drove so deeply into the zone, I'd be very cautious about doing it again. And, again, you guys can see the X here. And if I bring it back up to the 2 hour, just to kind of make it easier to find it, you can see we had 1 touch, 2 touches, 3 touches. Remember, number 4 is the magical one we expect to break. And that's exactly what we saw. It sliced through it like butter. And then what happened on the other side is when it found this, you guys have seen this pattern once or twice, right? Where we come up, we come back down again and use that same level, right? It was here and we punch higher, right? The old Harry Potter trade right there. So There was your trade entry at about 6 o'clock this morning up. You should be capturing profit right now. There's an area right here I'd be concerned about just based off of where the wicks are. And that's kind of my one concern going into the open today is will we start kind of kicking back? Will that profit taking come in? As you can see, we bounced kind of off this level, and again, we have kind of this downward kind of area of sellers pushing in here. So we are at a level on the 15-minute chart. On a technical basis, it is more set up for a short right now for the open. And like I said, ES and NQ are both up. This one is basically flat. Yeah, it's basically flat.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump over to the Nadex chart real quickly. It helps if I put on not crude. We're going to do crude. We'll do crude oil next.
Surprise.
Okay, so that happens. That's okay. Okay, there we go. We've got some Fibonacci levels on here that we drew a few days back. I've just recently put in this channel, so I am going to make this a whole lot easier to see. And I just want everyone. Let's make it a little bit smaller. There we go. I mean, once we touched that, up on the upper left-hand corner, once we touched 35,000, it was kind of crazy how we said, hey, it's just within a stone's throw of hitting that. It's as though people were looking for a reason to sell. It touched that 35,000 mark. The inflation numbers came in, the employment numbers, as people, I just get this feeling like everyone's been talking negative. They wanted to see it happen, and we've watched the Dow drop from 35,000 down to 33,200. I mean, that's a pretty significant drop. It has been in a bit of a channel. Yeah, if you don't know how to draw these channels, I'm going to be doing a platform session on Nadex later today just to show you how to use some of the tools. But you can see as it's gotten towards the bottom end of the channel range, the buyers have stepped in. I know this isn't exactly the way. I mean, Brian looks at support and resistance, and he looks at just not necessarily. I'm sorry, not support and resistance, just supply and demand. Brian is supply and demand. It's nice to be able to see some support and resistance as well as some of these Fibonacci levels. Just because others also do look at that. We are bouncing here, and I mean, we've got this Fibonacci level right here, 33,600. Yeah, just as Brian mentioned, I mean, it might kind of drift up here. We'll see what happens as retail traders get into the markets in the U.S. and how they want to, this is one of those, there's some levels, they're going to be interesting, pay attention to them. And try to adjust accordingly, because we've got some highly volatile markets, and we're going to talk about that volatility and how that impacts Nadex products when we talk about oil. So, Brian, I'm going to flip this back over to you for the oil.
For the oil talk of the day. So, as you guys know, we mentioned it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you have a lot of catching up to do, right? Oil inventory reports went pretty much every Wednesday. If there's a holiday, it's on a Thursday. Interestingly enough, again, we talked about, and I'll show it to you on the next chart, it came in much less than expected. And I say much less, but it was only supposed to be down to 2.1 mil, and it was only down 0.4. So technically it shows up as red. Is that an earth-shattering number? No, not really, but those are the nice ones to play. So this is one of those ones we knew where we were at. Yesterday, when we had talked, we were kind of sitting in this area. We had just taken a bounce from this 9 o'clock level. We'd mentioned that up here around 66.60, we had some sellers coming in. Wasn't the best of levels, and what we were looking to do is drop it down to a 5 or 15-minute chart. Look for some basing where price is holding before the news release. But we were able to get in, and it wasn't the cleanest of entries. But I mentioned for my students, I basically was like, listen, we're getting it here. I would say short on this one based off of what we're seeing. Again, it's an area of sellers. It kind of stabilized up top, and again, that's why it's nice. With binaries. Or even call spreads, you don't have to be exact. You just need to be close, right? Where if you're using like futures trading, you got to be dead on. If you put your sell order at 66, 63, you didn't get in, right? You just missed it. But again, knowing that we were going to have a catalyst in a few minutes, we were able to say, hey, listen, there's an opportunity to get this one short. And it did, where our profit targets were at 56, 66. So as you can see, this is kind of the story that I've been kind of laying out. And I've done this for a couple different pairs to kind of help educate you guys. And when we go back, we've seen it multiple times here, all these, where we typically have the two sessions, right? European session, US session. And you tend to have one big one and then one small one. Coming back here, it was small, big, small, big. And then this week, what do we have? Small, big, and I mentioned it was probably going to be smaller, although you can see that the Asian session was the mover. And then in the overnight from basically 3 o'clock down, we've also had a big one. So oil actually may be kind of more range bound today, with kind of a lack of information. And again, a lot of the movement's already been sucked up. And again, yesterday, it's a nice little overnight trade, and this is one of those things when you can catch these, the binaries, call spreads, things like that, the longer duration contracts. There is something to be said about it. Now, in the 2 hour frame, it was decent. It was about a 70-cent drop just off that news in a few hours. But I would say the way that you guys would, the best trading would have been to get short, looking for a level here that we were using as a profit target. And once you saw a base, you were looking for the pattern here to continue to the downside, because we knew we really didn't have much until at least down in this level, but probably even a little bit lower. And you can see that's what it took the bounce off of right here across, took the bounce and then continued to collapse. And again, here is your European session open, right? When we're pulling back up into a small little level, and you can see it right here, there is your session opener. I'll just take this one. Do this. Let's copy it, and boom, there's your European session open. And again, it's on the 15-minute. On the 30, it's a little bit easier to see, but see how this pulls back right in time for that 3 o'clock open? There's your session open for oil, right? Pulling back into another level. So right now, like I said, I would expect it to be more range bound. The clean levels that I have are 62.90, which is a bit far away. We got $2 on that one. I don't think we're hitting that one. One area that I would look up for if we do get some type of a rally is, I think, the way that this pulled up into that level, particularly around the fact that it was at the open, I think there could be something up here at 65.21. I think that's probably a decent level to kind of take a short off of. But right now, I expect this to be a little bit more range bound today. And again, I really don't think we'll get below 63.80. I think we'll end up kind of smaller over in here in preparation for tomorrow.
All right. No, that's the only reason I wanted to jump over on the Nadex charts, Brian gave you some interesting levels. Binary options, definitely one way to play that. I thought I would just kind of bring up quickly some of the call spread products and maybe knockouts. The only reason I bring up call spread is you always want to look at how the premium is. When volatility is high, you might see you'll see increased premiums in the call spreads because they do have that optionality. For instance, I've got a call spread here. It's not too bad. If you thought it was going to be going higher, you could take a position. If it touched the floor, you're not knocked out. You have that opportunity for it to possibly go higher, and you're trading the price, but there's just going to be a little bit of a premium baked into it. As you can see, if you wanted to buy this level with oil currently trading 64.55 right now, with what have we got, 5.5 hours to go, you'd have to pay up near 64.90. So there's that 45 cents of premium that's baked in for that optionality, so that you're not knocked out of the trade. I mean, and when there's higher volatility like we've been seeing, these premium levels can be significant. If you were to look at the call spreads, in fact, I'd say go look at the call spreads on the Dow, and you'll see, because volatility is through the roof. The VIX popping up near 28. So often in some of these markets, some traders would tend to look instead of the call spreads where there is a lot of premium in them. So you have to be right, and you have to concern yourself a little bit with the premium. I didn't want to go to indices. I want to go to commodities. Knockouts might be, it's a way to play these in a directional way where you've got a way to control your risk, because if it does touch a floor or ceiling, you are knocked out of the trade. You just got to take a look at the different levels for the knockouts and manage your risk accordingly. With that, Brian, I'm actually going to say, again, you gave us some great, interesting levels in the Dow, some technical levels in crude.
I would say there's one last thing to cover today, and then we got to roll.
Yep.
11 a.m. today, there's a speech by the BOC Governor Macklin. One interesting thing, and again, I've mentioned news trading a lot, guys. You're seeing the dollar kind of really go on a tear. We're seeing news articles about the dollar. The dollar CAD has been pushing up, but Macklin talking at 11 o'clock today, it's not necessarily like a pure, this is Canada, but he could mention things about, and if you click on it, it breaks it down. The reason I'm bringing it up is because right now this is a very, very simple pattern. I don't typically trade off patterns, but a lot of people really like them. Here's a double top put in here, and I do believe that we are going to see kind of not only a retracement of this one. Again, it's been pure dollar strength, and the CAD's been kind of holding its own lately. It's way down on the curve right now. But the fact that we're seeing kind of a double top in here, and we have Macklin speaking, and they don't speak often, I think and again, the Canadian policy right now has been start easing, and they're kind of pushing ahead with recovery, just like the UK is. I think today we have an opportunity to take this short, and again, this is purely with the fact that there is a double top put in. I don't trade these exclusively, but I do like to know when other people are looking at them. And again, when you draw necklines, it kind of matches up, and if we can get a push down, back down to lower levels at 2070, I think that's possible today in a retracement of the dollar and positive CAD news. So that's
definitely something to look at. By the way, I just wanted to quickly, because we got asked about it for the Dow, the Wall Street, and this is the binary options. You can see that downward channel that I had on the chart. And I did mark off a few levels. I mentioned these these Fibonacci levels, and I've highlighted them in gray, where we are, we've got Brian's levels in here, and they happen to match with the Fibonacci levels as well, but we also have this channel. So again, we've got, the binary options, as I zoom in closer, this is a 15-minute chart. You can see how many different opportunities there are to potentially go long or short. Remember, you are not married to a binary option position. You do not have to wait to see what happens. You can day trade these. So if they're moving around and you think it's going higher and you buy a binary option and it goes your way, you can certainly choose to liquidate that position early if you think the market might turn. So today it might be a volatile one. We'll see what happens. We are looking at a flat open after selling off overnight. We'll see what the U.S. retail trader has to say. With that, I do want to say, let's see. I think we've kind of covered everything that, and I've recapped. There we go. I've recapped everything that we've discussed today. So if you got any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. Any questions for Brian, support@keeptradingsimple.com. Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning. And with that, we want to let everyone get ready. The market's open in 29 minutes. Good luck in the markets, everyone.